and operations. So that's the nuances there. We'll share 3 case studies. We'll talk little bit about other items to take into considerations, and then we'll leave it open for Q&A. So a little bit about ourselves. So we go to market with 2 brands, Kibog and All Electrical. We started off as Kibog, which is a software technology company, and about 14 months ago we acquired All Electrical, which is an electrical company, because we see the integration of IT and OT and IoT and everything else in there. So we're kind of bringing it all together. Kibog, kind of, just like I said, we provide technology solutions primarily to facility and property managers. So kind of we play primarily on the operations and maintenance side of things, less on the construction side. We have 2 products. One's EasyBook, which is cloud-based asset booking and utilization management software. And we also have Kibog, which is a cloud-based asset management software. On Kibog, we have the IoT capabilities, which allows our customers to do remote monitoring and remotely monitor the health and condition of an asset in real time. So this is where we use sensors and gateways and all that stuff to bring data onto our cloud servers and manage events. So that's what we do. At times, we also resell IoT solutions from other partners as needed. If our solutions don't have the capabilities that customers are looking for, we kind of, we reach out to our partners. So we do resell, and we also provide technology consulting services to facility and property managers. On the electrical side of things, so Kibog is a licensed electrical contractor in the province of Ontario, Canada. We're very focused on electrical automation and control and EV charging infrastructure. That's kind of our focus on from an electrical point of view. With the electrical is where we're very engaged both on the construction and the maintenance side of things. So we do electrical construction. We also do maintenance on the electrical side of things. So we do construction, renovation, maintain electrical systems and assets. And along with that, we also implement automation and control systems. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and we have a case study on that. So through Kibog and All Electrical, so we have experience on the IP side of things, which is Internet Protocol, and we also have experience on the non-IP based solutions, using BACnet and other things. So kind of, with our vision, where we see these worlds kind of, coming together, integrating, coexisting. I think that there's room for both. Like, it's not just going to be all IoT and IP. That there's going to be room for existing technologies, legacy technologies, and IoT. So that's kind of how we see the world evolve. Mm-hmm. So just getting into kind of construction versus operations, right? So kind of, when you look at construction, you're pretty much starting with an empty slate. So kind of, you have an open field to play with. You get time for upfront planning. You can incorporate technology into the design, and recently we've seen a lot of, even like engineers and architects and everybody else, they are implementing IoT solutions in the upfront design, which is great because these solutions now get funded. There's enough funding investments to implement upfront. When you're starting from scratch, when you're building, implementation is a lot easier. And kind of, keep in mind that during construction, all you're doing is you're just implementing it. You're just installing it. You're just putting those devices and solutions there. It's not in use. So the value is only received once it's operationalized or commissioned, right? All these buildings, all these kind of, assets are commissioned. That's when you really start to see the value of the solutions coming on. At the construction phase, is just because, okay, get it there, make sure it's right, test it, make sure it's ready for operationalization. And then, the key thing to keep in mind is, in terms of construction, generally the teams that implement these solutions, they leave after implementation, so they don't have to live with the outcomes. They don't have to live with whatever is there, right? So what we see a lot is that, at the end of the project, there's some transitioning to operations. Sometimes it's good, sometimes not that great. But I think with BIM, with BIM, and with the digital twins that we can implement, I think there's a lots of opportunities for BIM to kind of be part of that transitioning, so that the operational teams know exactly what's what, what's where, how to kind of fix things, or when something goes wrong, not scrambling and making 200 calls to figure out what's going on. In terms of operation, now that's a different mindset altogether. You have to work with existing structures and equipment. So you don't have a blank slate. You have to work with what's there. Makes it really challenging. Most of the cases, you're retrofitting technology to legacy designs. So kind of the designs that were kind of put out like 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. You have buildings that have been around for 60, 70 years. How do you do that? You have to be creative. You have to kind of make sure it's done at a reasonable budget. Talking about budget, right? Funding. Once things are operationalized, you don't have that upfront capital funding or investment, right? You have to compete with other projects that an organization has to get those funding, because you cannot use your maintenance budget for projects. Otherwise you're going to have a lot of issues there. Implementations are generally costlier than construction, and you have to budget for that accordingly. And the biggest thing during operations is that you have to kind of keep in mind that you don't impact the business. So any implementations you do needs to be done quickly, maybe after hours, within a very short period of time, so that there is no business disruption, there is no downtime, because in a lot of cases, downtime means lost revenue. So these are the things that we generally keep in mind as we kind of, depending on the type of projects we do, as we get into these projects. A lot of the projects that we have kind of have been implemented, so we're kind of already in the operational phase. But I'm going to talk about three projects here that kind of that'll give us a flavor of the different things we're looking at. So case study one. This started as a project, so which is pretty good. Clean slate. We had a lot of kind of flexibility in terms of how we could do what we could do. This was about monitoring 15 properties across the country, across Canada. So again, a good project. We had lots of sensors and gateways, both internet and cellular gateways implemented across the country. The screenshot that I have here is actually from our live system. So I've kind of grayed out a few things to make it kind of to take out some sensitive information. But this is kind of showing kind of the current status of these devices. And how these devices are really kind of helping monitor the health and condition of these devices pretty much in real time. When you take a look at the screen in real time, you kind of know what's going on in each of those properties. In this case, we had three sensors, or we still have three sensors that are generating data. We have a door open and close to kind of monitor vandalism after hours. We have temperature sensors, especially in the northern parts, to kind of see if the heating system is down and if the temperature is going down. We want to avoid freezing of pipes, right? So if pipes freeze, kind of you're gonna have a flood. So that's a big issue. And then we have a water sensor to detect any flood. So in this case, let's say kind of we were able to deliver value very quickly. Within months. So the first flood we prevented was able to kind of pay for the overall solution. Mm-hmm. And I think so far we prevented about 5 or 6 floods so far. Wow. which is totally kind of from a business case point of view, a total return on investment. Mm-hmm. And now we're kind of in discussions to expand across multiple, like we're looking at close to about 50 properties. Across the country, and there might be 1 or 2 other properties in the U.S. there, but kind of that's what it is, right? Like like when you implement a new solution, you have to do 2 things. It's either you have to bring in more revenue, we save cost, right? So now kind of what this also means is that with this solution, our client is looking to go back to the insurance company and say, hey, you know what? We have the solution. We've prevented some losses here. Can you guys reduce our insurance premium? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, now it's up to the insurance company, but at least the client feels confident that they can go back and have that conversation.
Yep, great idea.
Yeah, so this is one from a property management point of view. Again, a very good example where we could kind of like we work from a construction point of view. We started from scratch, started from zero, very low cost, easy to implement, easy to get going, and yeah, so that was really helpful. In this case, because the properties were all over the place, we actually used cell gateways, not internet gateways, and these cellular gateways are all transmitting data to our Kibog platform using SIM cards. Next case study. So temperature monitoring in a food storage warehouse, again in Ontario, right? So this company, it's one of the largest food supplier in North America. They have multiple kind of warehouses across the country. We've done a pilot with two warehouses in Ontario. Each warehouse has about 10 to 12 million dollars worth of food items at any point in time. Again, so they have dry sections and they have kind of really cold sections, and like some cellars are so massive big that like you can just walk across almost like a football field, and it's a lot of inventory. It's a lot of, which means a lot of money, right, that they have there.
All right.
So with this one here, this case study was pretty interesting because we it's almost a retrofit solution, right? Like they already had an HVAC solution. The initial, the original business case was to extract data, temperature data from their HVAC system, and do the monitoring that way. But we quickly realized that the HVAC system was very closed, and we were kind of one was like it was getting really tough to get the protocol details from the HVAC manufacturer, and then we realized that it was a closed system. It was getting really hard to pull data out. So what we did was that instead of kind of trying to chase down the HVAC manufacturer, what we did was that we quickly implemented a parallel solution, where if you see here, right, in all these diagrams here, we got our own sensors here. So instead of using the HVAC sensors, we're using our own sensors here. And these are industrial grade sensors that can go up to -80. And these areas are very cold. Like if you understand food services, right? Your fridge needs to be below 2 degrees centigrade, and your freezer, your frozen stuff, I think has to be less than -20 degrees centigrade. So we kind of went parallel, saying that, it's a lot of headache, and it's like, we're getting into a spin here. Let's just implement a parallel system quickly. So within a month, we were able to implement the system in parallel, where we have our own sensors across those warehouses. And this is the dock door, right? Even the dock door, right around the dock door, we can monitor the temperature. So the business case here is that what we did was that within a month, we implemented a parallel system. We have backup upon backup. So for example, our sensors are connected, sensors send data to the gateway. We have an internet gateway that is connected to their internet system internally, but we also have a backup cellular gateway in case the internet goes down. The cell gateway will pick up the signal and send it back to our software. This solution generates real-time kind of alerts for food and safety. So kind of anytime something goes wrong, kind of you have millions of dollars of worth of inventory at stake, right? So again, loss prevention there. But also from a food safety point of view, it's highly regulated industry. So our system is now used to generate the logs. So you have to provide logs to the health regulators. So our system is now used to provide the logs to these regulators to say that, hey, you know what? We have constant monitoring, we have events, we have alerts, and you know what? If you want to report for all the kind of periodic temperatures, we can quickly print it off from our system and pass it on to the inspectors. So that was kind of a business case here, and this is where we kind of where we feel that in a lot of times you have to coexist with existing or legacy kind of solutions. A third case study, this is not IoT related, but I want to put it here because I know we are coming from an IT technology background. We think that we can kind of implement our solution in use cases, but for some use cases, IoT solution may not be the right solution. So, for example, in this case, right? So this is a factory. It's an industrial solution. We started down the path of saying that, hey, can we do an IoT solution to put a safety screen? So if you look at this, right? So this is your manufacturing kind of in a belt. So your products being manufactured is coming down this way if you follow the arrow. So this is kind of the gate here. So the customer wanted to put in a safety screen saying that if anything were to go the reverse way, the belt, the plant, or at least that line would shut down. So we spent a lot of time trying to figure out to come up with an IoT solution, but then we got into issues with regards to kind of time lapse, right? So if you had a cloud-based solution, which means now you're dependent on the internet, because if the internet is down, then if somebody goes around here, it's not getting the signal back. We thought about edge computing, and we kind of looked at a few solutions out there, but it's not as mature and as reliable as we would expect it to be. So what we did with this one is that because from our all electrical side of things, we already do automation and control. We actually went with an automation control solution here. So we went with Rockwell Automation, and this is kind of the solution we have in place using PLC and stuff. So this was kind of it's very real time, no very minimal or no time lapse, so that even if somebody kind of put their hand in around here, it would shut down that kind of that line immediately. So I kind of I put this here just as a kind of talking point to say that like in some cases yes we have to look at non-IoT solutions. They might be a better fit. And then as we look at IoT and other solutions, there's a few other things that I just want to share from our perspective is IP versus backnet, right? So people that have kind of that do a lot of work with buildings and building automation, you'll understand that a lot of the building automation systems are run on backnet. So again, keep in mind that a significant amount of investments has gone into these buildings, right? Like customers have invested like thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to set up these machines and equipments. And these equipments, these machines are working, right? These systems are working. So like, what's the business case? Why should the customer kind of rip apart their backnet solution and put in an IoT solution, unless there's a pressing kind of a need, right? So which kind of in my case, I haven't seen kind of too many instances, or I actually haven't seen any instances where an IP or IoT solution has replaced a backnet solution. So I kind of generally think of backnet solutions as mainframes, right? Like everybody talks about, hey, mainframes are old, legacy, kind of, you got to get rid of mainframes. But reality is that you can't get rid of mainframes, right? Like I have friends at the banks that kind of whine about mainframes all the time, but reality is that the mainframes are always there. So the other thing to keep in mind is that even if there's a new construction happening, customers want to keep the same solution across all the systems, right? Because it has other implications. If you have two different systems, then you got to have two sets of people, which drives up cost. And then if these systems don't talk to each other, that's another headache. So just from all of these things, right? Like it's going to be difficult to kind of replace backnet. But what we can do is we can think about coexisting with backnet and some of these other solutions. And recently, we have seen a lot of kind of backnet/IP integration kits that allow you to kind of from an IP solution point of view, allows you to communicate with backnet systems and get data back or push data into the backnet system. So existing protocols are here to stay. It's not going anywhere. We just have to find a way to coexist and integrate and work with them. And the good thing is kits are becoming available now. Security is another thing that kind of clients are kind of very concerned about these days. Internet overall is kind of high risk. We know what happened to Colonial Pipe last year. I think they paid about $5 million in ransom to the hackers. But but when you look at that, right, like an open protocol like IP versus BACnet, which is more kind of in a closed and more limited in terms of access, but by default it has inherent security built into it. So that definitely helps, especially these days with all the hacking and all that stuff going around there. And then the last thing to keep in mind, right? So existing providers, right? Like when you look at people like ABB and Siemens and Johnson Controls and Rockwell Automation, all those companies, right? Like these guys are investing in IoT solutions. They are investing in IP. They know the future is IP, at least for the future products. So kind of, the competition is there. Like the legacy or the old kind of, stable companies aren't going anywhere. It's not that, small companies like us can replace them. No, it's going to be very hard because they have deep pockets and they are investing into these future solutions, and they are coming up with solutions that can support multiple protocols and they can support, and their products are coming out that have kind of, the integration between IoT, IP, and BACnet built into it. So these are the things to kind of keep in mind and keep into considerations kind of, as you look at IoT overall and how things are shaping up.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I'm going to pause, stop talking, and see if there's any questions out there.
Sure. Yes, I actually had a question regarding those IoT versus non-IoT solutions, which you still can incorporate in the processes. Are you using the same software? Like, is Kibog used for both cases, IoT and non-IoT, or you use some extra tools to help with that?
So just like I said, right, like in some cases we resell some other companies' products, but in this one case where we have integrated with BACnet, we've actually we've used a third-party kit with Kibog. So Kibog is in one end, we have the integration kind of layer in between a kit, and that helps us communicate with BACnet. So as much as possible, we keep on building on Kibog, but in some cases, like if we don't have the capabilities, we'll bring on a third party.
Right. Yeah. I think I have one more question. And please go ahead and type your question in the chat. We will read them loud, and Bhuvan will be able to respond. Otherwise, obviously, after the presentation, you can always approach Bhuvan and talk to him directly. But the other question was from the BIM perspective. What is your view on how BIM and IoT can coexist, and how BIM can support IoT and vice versa?
They at least going forward, they would go hand in hand, right? So if you look at all these solutions, like all the 3 case studies, if we had BIM solutions and visualizations in place, and even at the construction level, right? If the BIM solution could tell us, hey, we already have existing sensors, or this is how you could use the sensors, the visual aspects would make it so much easier. The amount of time, so remember, like if you look at here, right, I said, retrofit takes a lot of time involved in consuming. Like half of the time that we spend when solutioning, just like we spend time, it just takes us so much more time to just do reverse engineering and understand what's out there. Like we have people just walking through the floors and taking pictures and looking around what's what and doing scanning and all that stuff, right? Thermal imaging and all that stuff. If we had BIM with all the information there, kind of almost half of our job is done right there because we know what's there. Right. Now, assuming that the BIM visualization and data is up to date, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing. But at least in the solutions that we've talked about and the case studies we've talked about, we never had a BIM. If we had, it definitely would have been very helpful. Like in half the cases, we don't even get drawings like an engineer's drawing.
Yes. I think this is the main problem of the industry, the data collection, right? Because for the new projects, and I see that how design phase is so important. In the new projects, you can have BIM right away and design places where you put sensors. Visually address that there will be a sensor. That is how we're gonna do it. The IoT will be part of it. So it's part of the design, and then the construction follows it, right? So it's already, the cost of it is incorporated in the whole project cost, and then the construction and then operation part obviously results from the good design and the data that is being integrated with the IoT solution in there. So exactly, that's why I think it's similar to BIM. BIM at the beginning, we had issues as well where contractors started using BIM very early, and designers would kind of catch up, as well as the owners at the end would realize, oh, actually, you see, that model, I want to have it because there is a lot of information. So it's from bottom up. The same with IoT, I would say right now. The sooner we start talking about this in design phase and concept phase, the better. That will reduce all the costs and make it all easier at the end, benefit the owner from the whole process the most. So yeah, I agree. I agree. Perfect. Yeah.
I totally agree with you on that. So if you look at this image we have here, right? The case study too. So here we had to manually walk through this kind of football field and kind of identify where the vents were, where and all that stuff, because we did not have access to a mechanical HVAC drawing. Okay. And we needed to identify, okay, what's the best place to put the sensor on? Okay, and then you want to put the sensor on where your HVAC could be the least, right? Like that could be the kind of the impact of the HVAC is the least, so that you get the kind of the worst case scenario. And we practically spend the whole day, like a couple of us, just walking around saying that, hey, you know what, we and then take pictures. We have one vent here, one vent here, one vent here, and then come back to the drawing and say, you know what, I think this area makes sense. If we had the mechanical HVAC drawing, we could have just looked at it, maybe had a quick call with the engineers, and then kind of probably within an hour or two, we would have figured out where to put these sensors. So it's time and money, right, that you say.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a question, if you get a lot of resistance on IoT solutions when you approach potential clients, and how do you get around that?
At the end of the day, it's all about the business case, right, and the value you bring. So because we have both IoT and automation control capabilities, right, we go in with an open mind. Generally, what we've noticed is that automation solutions are a little bit on the higher side than the IoT solutions. So kind of cost wise, kind of it's a little bit more beneficial to the customers. But again, both solutions have pros and cons, right? So kind of more than the customers, I think from an IoT point of view, what needs to be done is that the technicians, right, that implement and support these solutions. So by technicians, you're looking at mechanical people, HVAC people, electricians, and all that stuff, right? They are the ones that influence a customer's decision, and they need to be educated and made aware of IoT solutions, where they would be a better fit than automation and control solutions, and why, and also at the end of the day, like, what's in it for them, right? So that's how we generally approach it. But at the end of the day, we have to keep the customer in mind, and kind of work with the customers, work with the influencers, and try to provide the best solution at the best price.
Awesome. Yes, and Dennis mentioned that they would like to get more detailed info and operation, as they can help with the expert team. So I think it will be great if Dennis, if you and Bhuvan could talk about that after the session here on the platform, to share the information that you need. There is another question: in what phase you would recommend to start thinking of operations? from the facility management perspective, and operations getting involved as well in the whole process.
Like from my experience, operations needs to be thought about at the design stage, right? At the planning stage. Also, kind of what we normally recommend is that, at least for facility managers, when some of these system testings are done, when the training is done, we recommend facility managers to be part of it, because they will be the ones that are taking on these systems. They are the ones that are kind of living with it day in and day out, right? Mm-hmm. Just like I said, project teams just come in, they deploy, and they leave, right? It's the operations people, facility managers, property managers that have to live with what's left behind. Mm-hmm. So the sooner you get them involved, the sooner you get them trained. I think from a software point of view, I think the software processes have really matured. Like when you look at the SDLC process, you have user training and all that stuff before it gets deployed. I think we have to bring in the same kind of rigor where, people that have to live with these systems have to be involved, have to be trained, have to be involved in the testing, should be given kind of, knowledge transfer, documentation, operating procedures. BIM would be great, like visualization would be awesome, right? So kind of that's our take on all of these things. And so sometimes we ourselves are kind of, are guilty of what we do when we're in projects. But when we go on the operation side, and kind of, that's when we ourselves feel it, right? When we don't have enough knowledge, when there's not enough people trained, people don't know how to do things, and then everybody's scrambling.
Exactly. Yes. No, that's a good point. Thank you so much for all those insights. And if anyone wants to chat with Bhuvan after the session, feel free to stick around and network.